talk about an article on Polygon that says the Microsoft and Sony console wars are back and what that means for you, the gamer. So basically, in short, because these companies are buying different studios, they're generating more exclusives, and thus that is a lose-lose for the average gamer that can't afford to buy two consoles. That's kind of the crux of this argument by Ryan. I agree to a large extent, and let's just start off by saying, as always, my views are my own. I do work for Microsoft, but I have nothing to do with their gaming division. My points are completely reflective of my own opinion. I even own a PlayStation 5, as you can see in the back. But there are some topics or some issues that I would love to discuss with you, and the link will be down below, so read the article first. Point number one is a gaming war. So how do you win the war? I feel that the rules of engagement have changed. Sony says you have to sell as many consoles as possible, that's how you win. While Microsoft won't even release its numbers per se, because it's not about the boxes you sell, but rather about the overall engagement you have with the number of fans. So right off the bat, this war, quote unquote, is going to be very different from the past, where you have completely new definitions of what it means to win. So that's just something to keep in mind when talking about this next generation console war. It's definitely not the same as the past. Another, I guess, counterpoint to this being a negative for gamers is that we want, or at least I want, the consoles to be pushed to the max. Third-party development doesn't really guarantee that. You're kind of basically developing a video game that can run effectively and smoothly on both consoles. You're not trying to optimize the game for PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X. So with exclusives comes a chance for Sony to really show off what they've been talking about, to really, really push the boundaries of this console at the start. While for Xbox, it's the same story. They've definitely been leaning heavily on the world's most powerful console. So by having more exclusives, by buying so many different studios, that gives these studios a chance to really unpack what this beast can do. And at the end of the day, that should lead to really high fidelity looking graphics that are beyond our imaginations. If everything was on one platform, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we can see the boundaries being pushed there. So that's just my second problem with the notion that this war is bad. Thirdly, in capitalism, competition usually results in some great results for the average person. Usually. Big assumption, I know. So when corporations attack each other or try to one-up each other, the consumer usually wins when things work out. I understand that in the article, he talks about how this is great for developers and how they're getting a chance to be bought and they can focus more on creating games rather than trying to develop a business model that's sustainable. And he makes good points there and how it's a good thing for the developers. But at the end of the day, gamers just wouldn't be able to afford to buy two relatively expensive consoles and play all these different games. Later on in the article, he states that you're going to need to have an Excel sheet to kind of develop which games you can play, Halo or Ratchet, and that's overall a loss. But that whole capitalism argument that I'm making, because Microsoft wasn't necessarily winning in the last generation, they decided to really double down on what makes them unique. And they come up with a new approach where it's all about developing a platform and making it really accessible to all. So you can go off and get xCloud and you can play these Xbox games on your computer. You don't actually need the box to get in the game. That to me is a whole new way of thinking about consoles and thinking about video games and access. So in theory, you don't have to go out and buy a massive Xbox Series X and load up all these different games and buy games for $80 and then buy another game for another $80 on this console. You can just get the Game Pass and off you go. You get thousands of games, and not just crummy games that are in the past, but brand new games like Halo on day one will be a part of Game Pass. So it's never been more affordable to get into the Microsoft ecosystem. Having said that, for those who are obsessive about Sony and want a Sony no matter what, I mean, yeah, it's going to be more expensive. I definitely think that overall, if you look at the lifespan of a console and how much money you're going to spend on a console that forces you to buy games that are $80, yeah, the Sony, it's going to be expensive, and that's something I also considered. There are some exclusives that I just love. I grew up playing Nintendo 64, PlayStation 2 and 3, so I'm kind of fully locked into the Sony ecosystem. However, I can still enjoy the world of Microsoft because I can get Game Pass at a discount because I work for Microsoft. But even if I didn't, I can just boot up these great games on the cloud and enjoy them with an Xbox controller and basically play both worlds. It's never been more affordable. So the argument made by Ryan that there's a lot of financial barriers, I don't think that includes the analysis on xCloud and Game Pass and how affordable it is to kind of play these games at scale. Another point I think I'd like to make again is I think the PlayStation 4 versus the older Xbox, that was a war as well. It wasn't like kumbaya, everyone's fine, let's just make beautiful video games. He makes claims about God of War being an exclusive, but then you have Assassin's Creed being across multiple platforms, and still God of War was an exclusive game that definitely pushed consoles and definitely created more barriers for those who were enjoying Microsoft and kind of doubling down on their Xbox investments. So I mean, overall, I love the article, it makes great points. I'm all about making sure gamers win, but I just feel that the article was written in the context of the past rather than considering all these new developments, the change in Microsoft's business model, the costs of xCloud, and then kind of, yes, of course, Sony buying studios and then Microsoft buying all these different studios. Of course, that will lead to more exclusive games, but these games are going to be really epic. They're going to be awesome. They're going to push the boundaries of what these consoles are really about because they're always trying to one-up each other, especially when Microsoft kept saying that this is the most powerful box in the world. So now it's time for these companies to prove their worth, and I think it's going to be a great generation. I do think gamers will actually win out. If you are able to afford getting the xCloud and paying a bit more, I think you'll be fine. You'll get both best of both worlds. Of course, there's this little company called Nintendo that we didn't talk about, and they definitely have exclusives. I think their exclusives are the best. Oh, noises in New York. I love being back in New York. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. Are the console wars back? Did they ever leave? Do you think because of all these studio acquisitions that you, the gamer, are going to lose out? Or do you agree with me, thinking that there's a new business model in town by Microsoft that has never made that ecosystem more affordable and more accessible for everyone? Leave your comments down below. And as always, like, subscribe. I have a new channel. The more likes and subscribes I get, the more content I can push out. Thanks again, and talk to you next time. Jazz's Tech Hub.